Friends, I'm back in Alaska. Here, bears and moose roam the streets freely. Planes are like buses here. There's this endless stream of air traffic. Look, there they go, one after another. Somebody arrives in their pickup, grabs their small plane, and takes off to go hunting or visits friends in some remote village. And all this happens right at the international airport. The buses, meanwhile, are accessed through the local Dyatlov Pass. People have even died on the way to catch a bus. When he pulled her out, she had already drowned. He laid her down, covered her with a tarp, a tent, and some rocks. They still hunt whales here. We eat the meat of the whales he catches, and what we don't eat, I use for jewelry. A death-defying act. I'll be eating whale fat. There are unbelievable laws. They're pumping oil and mining gold. Ready to explore Alaska? Let's get started. So, this machine here used to be for gold mining. Now it just stands here, rusting away. Most of Alaska's former gold mines have been turned into tourist attractions. They're well maintained and equipped, but they've lost a bit of that authentic gold rush atmosphere. Right now I'm at a mine that was left just as it was shut down in 1962. This mine was originally discovered in 1923. Between 1926 and 1957, around $70 million worth of gold was extracted from this lake. At one point, the local mining camp had a population of 10,000 people. In 1997, historian Jamie High purchased this mine. He specifically chose to leave it untouched to preserve Alaska's history, but nature had other plans. There have been several major fires here, but the steel equipment survived. Like this enormous dredge. It's a special machine that was used to extract gold from the ground. Eventually, the mine became a popular tourist spot without any additional investment. Local websites even warn that although it's private property, it's a wild place and visitors should be cautious. You might run into a bear or another predator here. In July 1897, one of the largest gold rushes in North American history began. Thousands of prospectors flocked to Alaska, hoping to strike it rich. The road to the mines was anything but easy. Midway through the journey, many horses and dogs perished, and people decided to turn back. In the end, only a third of the 100,000 who set out in search of gold made it to the mines. It soon became clear that the rumors of vast amounts of gold were greatly exaggerated. This caused even more people to return home. Those who stayed had to wait for months until the frozen ground thawed. Few miners struck it rich. The real fortunes were made by those who sent them here. Despite this, the miners remained in Alaska, hoping for news of gold discoveries in other parts of the state. Gradually, the camps where mines once stood grew into large towns. When a large influx of gold miners arrived in Alaska, the indigenous population began to decline. The newcomers brought with them many new diseases. However, indigenous people still live in Alaska today. Nika and Boris, whom you might remember from our first video about Alaska, told me about the native peoples currently living in the state. Nika and Boris were born in Russia, moved to Israel, and just 5 years ago, they ended up here in Alaska, where they now organize tours around the state. So tell me about the local indigenous peoples who live here. Native Americans, Eskimos. Okay, yeah, Native Americans and Eskimos. What's happening with them now? Well, two things are happening. First, Alaska is huge, about the size of Europe. So on the one hand, we have the Athabascans, who are Native Americans. On the other hand, we have the Aleuts, who are closer to the Kamchatka. They're a bit different. By the way, we have an Aleut here who was unloading cars and dealing with water. Then there are the Yupik, the most widespread and numerous people in Alaska. They're essentially the same as the Russian Chukchi. Further north, we have the Inupiaq, the Eskimos. Today, they're trying to reconnect with their roots. There's a movement toward cultural revival and so on. At the same time, they're spread out and live all over Alaska. We don't have reservations here, so they can come to the cities, study, and so forth. They get to choose where they want to live, so there's no rule about where they must stay. Do they blend in with the Americans? Yeah. And in the schools, you see there are mixed-race kids and so on. Right here, we have a family nearby that has adopted several native children. Yupiks, to be precise. Yes, Yupiks. At the local museum, I learned how the indigenous people live, what they do, and what they wear. They've got the most fashionable pants, absolutely incredible. Nowadays, these pants could be sold in a high-end fashion store, and for a hefty price. Think something like Balenciaga. By the way, these boots, or mukluk, are similar to those in Yakutia. Amazingly, right next to them is a raincoat sewn from seal intestines. They cut the intestines into strips and stitch them together. In the past, during summer rains, they used to make these raincoats. Honestly, they look so stylish, so fashionable. I don't get why they don't make them today, and I bet they work better than all those modern membrane fabrics they've come up with. We should be making raincoats from guts just like the ancient people did. They knew what they were doing. The sealskin boots are just luxurious. Everything here is so well crafted. And this is what a whale looks like. Here's the process of cutting up a whale. As for storing whale meat, they carve out a space in the permafrost, and the meat is stored down below. And these are the boats they use. Here's the boat, and here's the buoy. Seal skins were inflated to make the buoy. I traveled to Utqiagvik to meet an Inupiat family in person and asked them about whale hunting.
So the community is a population about 5,000 people. 60 to, I think it's like 60 to 70%, something like that, is native, is Inupiat. It's a whaling community. This is a whaling community. A lot of our lifestyle and traditions are surrounding whaling.
But first, let's take a stroll around the town and see how people live in the American North. All in all, it's beautiful. No asphalt. Everything here is just like in Russia. It's bleak and run down, but the people are good. This is real America. A basketball hoop and 2 grills. Yeah, it's actually amazing. You walk around, look at the place, and it feels kind of abandoned. There's junk everywhere. Things are falling apart, and some cars are smashed. But there's a dog, so I guess it's not abandoned. And then there's a Japanese restaurant. Who would have thought? Teriyaki House. See, the restaurant's right here just waiting for you. And then there are these discarded fire extinguishers. Suddenly, you stumble upon this awesome wooden sidewalk. The most beautiful building around is the local post office. It's relatively modern, but it's filthy. They don't clean it either. There's supposed to be a crosswalk there, but the sidewalk just ends. So you have to cross the road in an unauthorized place. This is what a typical street looks like. You can see how much junk is scattered along the roadside. Once again, there are loads of wrecked cars. And here's the police station. Police cars, the windows are dirty, and it looks abandoned. But no, it really is a police station. And here's the parking lot at the police station. The local police are in a mess too. This is right in the center of town. You can see some buildings here. A bank branch. Overall, everything's fine and dandy, except for the awful dirt everywhere. One of the features of northern landscapes is abandoned old cars. It's not just expensive to get stuff up north. The same goes for food here. It's very expensive because shipping is costly, but it's also expensive to get anything out of here. So the whole north is littered with all kinds of garbage and junk. The problem is no one knows what to do with it. Old cars, barrels, scrap metal, construction waste. In theory, it could be shipped out. Occasionally a ship comes by and hauls some of it away. But generally, most of this junk and scrap metal is left to rot in the Arctic. And this is the situation everywhere. It's the same in the Russian North, and it's the same in America. You look around the streets and there's just a lot of junk cars that no one can do anything with. And there are cars like this one, a burnt-out Toyota FJ Cruiser. Again, there are a bunch of snowmobiles and ATVs, and I don't get it either. Are they abandoned? Well, this one probably is. Maybe they get washed or started up occasionally. I don't know. Another local peculiarity is the heating sockets, a little outlet like this. Every apartment has these outlets, and usually, cars have a household plug that connects to the engine. This whole system is needed to heat the engine in winter. It's similar to what they have in Scandinavian countries. In Finland, every parking lot has these things for electric engine heating, so you don't have to be dancing around the car in the morning. The engine starts easily. The oil stays warm. And consequently, this positively impacts the longevity of all the components. Here, take a look. Every car has a little plug. This plug connects to the engine heater. The local fire station spared no expense for their equipment either. It's such a lovely fire station. It's amazing to see how immaculate everything is. Just look at these vehicles. Amidst all the mess, you can literally use the wheel rims as mirrors. These cars are perfectly clean. It's like looking into a mirror when you look at that chrome. It's astonishing, especially given the state of the city. The way they keep these vehicles spotless, every single element, everything is polished. Here's their logo, a bear on a snowmobile. Look at these rims. You can see your reflection in them. The interior is spotless. The floor is impeccably clean. Everywhere you look, it's gleaming. The people here are incredibly friendly. They even let you come inside with muddy shoes. You can go in, take pictures. They open everything up for you. And this isn't a unique occurrence. In fact, if you find a fire station anywhere in America and are curious about sitting in a fire truck, 99% of the time, they'll show you around. They'll let you in and answer your questions, because they're usually great folks.
How many people work here?
Right here on staff, we have 5.
5.
So we have 3 shifts, A, B, and C. So we're A. I'm the captain of this, and we have 5 total, and including our fire chief.
And we work as a volunteers here.
We have volunteers too. We're paid staff. So
you're a paid staff.
Yeah.
What's the, if it's not a secret, what's the average salary of firemen?
The what?
Average salary.
That's everyone's salary. It depends. It fluctuates. Like for me, my hourly would be 30. I start at 31.
31
an hour.
$31 an hour.
Yeah.
Is it enough for live here?
Yep.
Utqiagvik. This is the northernmost city in the United States. It was once called Barrow, but in 2016 the official name was changed. Out of respect for the local people, the town was given a name in their language. In this language, Utqiagvik means the place where we hunt snowy owls. We refers to the Inupiat people. Utqiagvik is their largest settlement in the entire state. From their earliest days in this region, the Inupiat have depended on whales for almost everything they need. People here still eat whale meat, and they use the skin and bones to make boats and clothing. Whale blubber is used for tools and art, and the fat is rendered into oil.
Can you tell us a bit about whale hunting?
So whaling is, there's 2 seasons in a year. You have the spring whale hunt and then you have the fall whale hunt. The spring whale hunt typically is between beginning of April all the way up to about middle of May. The fall whale hunt is, it's a shorter season. It usually begins in the end of September, beginning of October to about the middle of October. and we hunt the bowhead whales. We have about 40 whaling captains in Barrow. 40 whaling captains in Barrow. Barrow is the largest whaling community in Alaska.
Finally, I met an Inupiat woman named Kawahini Donner. Kawahini is a local artist who creates jewelry from whale baleen and bones. She agreed to give us a tour of her home and introduce us to her family members.
Wow. They're real?
Yeah.
Real?
Yeah.
It's for
This one, these little bullets are for now.
wow.
And here's my pistol.
The comrade has everything lying around. See, here's the gun, and here's the ammunition.
I'm an artist. Yeah, I ship my art out. So the earrings, when he hunts, we eat it, and then what we don't use, we turn it into jewelry. So I can just do that, yeah. And then he works at the hospital in town. It's a really nice hospital.
Maintenance.
Maintenance.
Housing, maintenance.
Yeah. Did you notice how many different kind of people live here?
Yeah.
Filipino, Samoan, Hawaiian. That's because we have a really good economy. Intern makes $27 an hour. And so like right after high school. So like entry level job. So lots of people come here to work, and then they, better life for their family. Yeah. I also coach the volleyball team here. Oh. Yeah, so the kids, they like to play volleyball, so coach them. And my husband, he just hunts outside of his job. He just got his job maybe 2 years ago. He was hunting pretty much full time before that. But we have a baby now, so he needs money. But his parents and his family, they still only do hunting. So instead of the job. Yeah.
How much money can you do for a living from hunting?
Like 0.
Because you cannot
Sell the meat.
for selling, no?
You don't want to sell it. It's good you eat it. But they have what's called Medicaid welfare. Some people purposefully just do welfare while hunting because they enjoy it. So that's what my husband did before, was welfare and hunting, no job. But then when he met me, I like to travel, I like to, go to the city. So he just changed his lifestyle so we could be together. But some people do enjoy just hunting and living on welfare.
Kawahini and her mother decided to show how they cook whales.
Explain me what woman's knife mean. What the difference between regular knife?
The women holds it with your palm, and the men is more difficult to use. This. The men goes like that, and the women it's easier for us to cut it. So I'm gonna cut you a piece of whale, and then because I'm cleaning this, it came from the ice cellar. I just clean all the corners because it came from the ice cellar. Yeah, I'm gonna cut you some bite pieces. It's a little frozen, so I'm kind of using a little of my strength. And then I cut the outer piece because it's hard, and we don't want to eat that. Trim it like that. So I'm cutting by slice, and then I'm gonna cut this way so you can have a bite. Just like that. Little bite. So you don't have to, it's too hard to bite on it like an apple, but it's harder than an apple. That's why I'm cutting it super small pieces for you to try.
Mama Kawahini offered me to try another unusual dish. I was given this amazing thing to try. We decided not to find out what it is. It doesn't smell like beef stroganoff, although some of my friends...
What do you think?
It's a meat, No salt.
I put salt in there, but I don't use too much salt.
Oh, it's tasty. Не, это вкусно, это вкусно.
This one is caribou.
This one's
You
better.
can try it.
This
I can
is
give you
a
another bowl.
old lady recipe and the
And there's
new
rice.
Не, это
generation
вкусно.
recipe.
This is the caribou stew they make with vegetables.
Tell me for real,
With water.
my mom is better or mine is better? Tell me for real. This has teriyaki in it. Better.
So we can use caribou meat and you can fry or you can make soup out of it, like a vegetable soup.
Same thing, but different recipe.
It's a soup also.
Do you know why this one's so plain? Because that's how they would make it when the flour came, right?
Yeah.
When the Westerners first brought flour. This one's like a newer recipe.
Watch out, it's hot.
Горячая?
The soup is really nice, the taste.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
good. So we're gonna try the whale.
Well.
You can have it plain or you can eat it with garlic salt for taste.
The younger kids like to eat it with kimchi and soy sauce. But my mom,
It's kimchi.
yes,
Wow, it's Korean.
yeah, we have a Korean restaurant here.
Korean restaurant.
Oh,
Try
it's
this.
been here
I would.
A deadly trick. I have nothing to lose. I'm gonna eat whale. Whale fat. Do I have to eat it all?
The whole thing or only
With the blood part.
with the skin?
With the skin.
We're waiting.
So chew on it a little longer because you'll get the taste.
Feels like chicken gristle.
Not bad. You're exaggerating. It takes forever to chew.
Well, it tastes like whale. Whale skin with fat. It's fine.
Good, yeah, it's okay.
It's edible, but the skin, it has this kind of, well, it's whale skin. It's like chicken gristle. Anyway, it's not the kind of food that's worth making a culinary trip here for.
This is the dip we use to dip the frozen caribou to make it more tasteful. This is a delicate because we use seal blubber.
Delicacy.
A delicacy. We use seal blubber and then we let it age for a week or so and it comes to this seal oil. So you just dip, tiny bit, let it drip, 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 drip.
Okay. I have to add my garlic salt.
Yeah, a little bit salt. So that seal oil, it's aged. Not too much, so let it drip, 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 drip. That's just
It's fish oil. It's fish oil. Why dip in it?
So which way you like best? You like the frozen caribou, the whale, kimchi, the stew, or the soup?
Soup
You
or
like the soup with the vegetables?
Aha, that's my soup. More on the table.
Okay.
My mom, she helps sew the boat. So we actually sew the boat.
Oh.
We make the frame and then sew the seal together to make our boat to hunt the whale. So she's been sewing for
About 15 years.
a long time.
Whales are not only eaten in Utqiagvik. Whale baleen and bones decorate the walls of local dwellings, and the famous town landmark, the gateway to the Arctic, is made from whale jaws. So I came to one of the main attractions of this charming town, an arch made from whale jaws. This is the lower jaw, if I understand the structure of the whale correctly. Here are some other bones. This is the head of a smaller whale. Here's the lower jaw. Here's its head, and the upper jaw is like this, while the lower jaw consists of two large arches. which can be used to create this incredible, massive arch. If individual bones aren't enough for you, there's an entire whale skeleton in a museum in Alaska. The most interesting thing about this skeleton is the legs. The fin, if you look at the bones, resembles a human hand. These are the jaws, and it's from these lower jaws that the arches are made. I decided to ask the captain of a small cruise ship what he thinks about whale hunting in Alaska.
It's fine in the Arctic. Whaling, in my opinion, is fine in the Arctic because they've been doing it for a long time and it's sustainable. And it feeds their village and it's a way of lifestyle. But commercial whaling, I think, is
But commercial whaling is forbidden.
It's forbidden in most places. Yes. Yep. So commercial whaling, no, but whaling to feed your families and to continue your traditional way of living, I think is fine. It should be encouraged. Like in Barrow, the people, when they hunt bowhead whales, they feeds their entire village and heats their homes, and it's a way of life. When I used to work as a geologist up in Barrow, I worked up in the at the Naval Arctic Research Laboratory, and north of Point Barrow, and I was excavating contaminated soil one time, and a whaling crew pulled in a big bowhead whale onto the beach, but they were having a hard time pulling it up out of the water, and I had a big heavy equipment, and so I helped them. I used my heavy equipment to lift the whale up out of the ocean and put it on the beach so they could harvest the whale on the beach. That was pretty fun, being able to pick a whale pick a whale up out of the ocean and put it on land. That was pretty exhilarating.
Alaskans don't just go to sea for whales, they also go fishing regularly. Fishing in Alaska is not just a hobby or pastime. For many residents of the state, it's a way to feed their families because of the high cost of groceries. For Native Alaskans, it's an essential part of life, as grocery shopping is for us. By the way, you can't just go fishing casually. You need a license to do this. For locals, it costs $20 a year, but for tourists, it's $15 per day. At the same time, you can't catch a lot of fish at once. For example, a family can only catch up to 10 fish per day. If you're caught fishing without a license, you could be fined, have your fishing privileges revoked, or even be jailed. This is the only state where we have special licenses for fishing and hunting for food. That is, it's not sport fishing, but for example, our family of 4 has the right to catch, say, 55 salmon using nets at a specific time in a specific place, and it's solely for food. Essentially, the state supports hunting, fishing, and living off the land. But same goes for caribou hunting, but it's done with great care. There are regulations in place that are strictly monitored. For example, there are limits on how much fish can be caught. You can catch less, of course, but not more than allowed. They regulate what's happening to ensure a balance. Wait, you say this is the only state that has these licenses? Does that mean you can't catch fish in all the other states? No. Or that there are no licenses. No, you can do it, but there are sporting licenses. I mean sport fishing, sport hunting. So you get a license, but here, in addition to sport fishing licenses, state residents also get a license specifically for food. So you have the right to catch fish to eat. What happens if I go out right now with a fishing rod to catch salmon? Well, if you have a license, then no problem. If they catch you without one, though, there might be a fine. Indigenous people have privileges in this area. They can fish and hunt without any restrictions or special documents. This is because the state authorities strive to preserve the traditional way of life of smaller communities. Additionally, the natives have other benefits. For instance, they receive payments from construction or oil companies opening in the state. This is all thanks to the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, which was established back in the last century. According to this act, companies pay local residents for use of their ancestral lands. When Alaska was divided into 3 parts, federal lands, state lands, and native lands were managed by native corporations. So they fished, earned some money, and that money needed to be invested somewhere. They built various corporations. For example, Nika is working for such a corporation and can tell you firsthand what it's like. Basically, it's a company owned by a tribe. They hire whoever they want. But there are preferences. For instance, if a local native wants to work there, they'll be hired first. However, they aren't always eager to work there, so they hire anyone who qualifies. The tribe exists on this money. They fund grants for students to study. The company is involved in, well, it's engineering, but what they do isn't important. They handle government contracts. It's important because it relies on government contracts. Naturally, when orders come in, the first place they go to, well, there's a tender process, but according to American rules, a certain percentage of contracts must go to native corporations.
We do have dividends, but it's not entirely just from the oil. It's from other business lines. You have other business lines that are in government contracting, local municipality contracting. It's a business that is very diverse. It's not just surrounding oil. It's a business. It's a corporation that is that provides services, whether it's to the oil industry or to the government, the federal government, the state of Alaska, or the local municipality, or businesses that are, for science research or some sort of service that they're providing and getting compensated for that.
So each native has a share.
So yeah, each native does have a share at the regional level and at the village corporation level. And if you were born after 1972 at the village corporation level, you weren't really allowed to be a shareholder. At the regional level, you were allowed to become a shareholder. I think that it was done, they opened up the rolls to allow all descendants to be shareholders in the regional corporation. I think it was in the 80s. So every Inupiaq that is a lineal descent of an original shareholder was allowed to become a shareholder. So, but a lot of the contracting is just for providing services. It's not very much according to your standards. We only see say $1,500 a year, or even $2,000 a year with the village corporation.
Also, indigenous peoples are provided free medical insurance.
We have paid for health care. We have our own corporation, billion-dollar corporation. So I feel like Inupiaq people made really good deal for themselves. So it's better for me to be here. No medical bill, nothing.
Yeah.
You know how in states, United States, $30,000 to have a baby, but here,
Disaster.
yeah, but here it's zero.
Insurance.
Well, I have health insurance, but they have what's called Indian Health Service.
Yeah.
So I'm native, so Alaska Native, they get no bill. So.
Another great thing about Native Alaskans is that they have the best hospital in Alaska. It's Native Hospital. All the people gathered together and paid for it. If you're a Native Alaskan, you get free medical care, and it's the best in Alaska. So, if you're not Native, you have to make an effort to get into it. You're lucky if they take you there. And if you're Native, they'll take you there by default. And you don't have to pay for it by default. You have the best medical insurance, and it's free. So all the Native people have the best free medical insurance, where everything is included? Yes. Well, yes, but it's not at the expense of the state. All these free goodies are created by the corporations themselves. As you've already gathered, the natives maintain a traditional way of life. They hunt whales, earn money through fishing and hunting, but modern technology hasn't passed them by, so many locals even have a Netflix subscription. Like many regions in the far north of Russia, Alaska has long suffered from a lack of reliable internet access. In fact, until last year, connectivity here was mostly reliant on fiber optic cables, which were only available in relatively large cities. However, several hundred villages and remote locations in the state were left without proper internet access. The local satellite networks were unstable and had limited coverage. In short, it was much like the far north of Russia, where when you arrive somewhere, there's simply no internet, no mobile, no anything, and only a satellite signal struggling to get through. However, everything changed in Alaska last year, when Starlink satellite communication provided by Elon Musk started working. Its satellites cover a significant portion of the region, and now you can access the internet even from a simple fishing boat, or say from your cabin out in the vast tundra. That said, Starlink also has its drawbacks. Well, they say that the speed and stability of the signal aren't as reliable as fiber optics, but it's still a huge improvement. Interestingly, Musk's company wasn't prepared for such an influx of customers. They had to urgently launch additional satellites to keep the network running smoothly. However, the advantages of Starlink are clear, especially evident in June of this year, when an iceberg damaged an underwater cable that provided connectivity to the region. Despite this, Alaska isn't planning to give up on cables entirely. A new program aims to lay down tens of kilometers of fiber optics across the state. However, when exactly this will reach remote villages is still uncertain. It's more of a distant fantasy at this point, especially for small settlements like Barrow. On the other hand, Starlink has already made internet access possible for many Alaskan natives. For example, a company called Kuskokwim, founded by members of local tribes, has recently helped connect 450 homes in 10 different villages to Starlink. The company covered the cost of installing terminals and other necessary equipment for the connection. Each such kit costs $600, and Alaskan residents have to pay $90 per month for the service. For those who might not know, Starlink was launched in 2019 with the goal of eventually covering the entire planet with its satellites. Currently, there are already 4,500 of Elon Musk's satellites in orbit. So now, the natives in Alaska don't have to resort to drinking out of boredom. They can, for instance, watch YouTube videos and even like my content. By the way, don't forget to do that as well. And if you take a mobile phone now, it might show LTE and might even indicate that there's a network, but nothing actually works. Nothing loads, and you need to find a place where there's actually Starlink. And then, life just blossoms with new colors. These little white squares are the Starlink antennas. You can see them on many rooftops around here. This is the fast internet that recently appeared here, and it's made life much better.
Elon Musk, he has the Starlink. Before, I was paying $700 a month for internet. That's too much. So we watch Netflix, gaming. He loves to do Call of Duty. But because we have the Starlink, it's only $90 now.
$90?
Elon Musk, yeah.
$90.
That's a monthly.
Yeah, Starlink. Yeah. So
equipment is like $500.
like $600, yeah, $500. But it totally changed our lives because now more people can watch Netflix, gaming. Before I would pay, oh my gosh, $700,000 a month just to watch Netflix. So.
There are also several activities in Utqiagvik that locals use to pass their free time. These are drugs and alcohol. At the same time, smoking weed is allowed here, but alcohol consumption is strictly controlled.
And I understand that marijuana is legal here, but alcohol is not legal.
Well, it's legal. It's just here it's rationed out almost. You get one, maybe two, but I think it's 1 month per order.
But I can buy it. As a tourist, I can buy it. There's no bars, no liquor stores.
You have to know somebody.
Wow. So there's a black market.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's surprising is that while you can't buy alcohol, you can legally purchase marijuana. There's a completely ordinary store selling it. Behind me is the town cemetery, which fits the theme. Life in Alaska is pretty tough. The harsh climate means temperatures can drop as low as minus 41 degrees in the winter. For example, the town of Utqiagvik spends 2 months in complete darkness. Additionally, people constantly have to monitor river floods. In July, floods in Alaska's capital, Juneau, destroyed several homes, leading authorities to declare a state of emergency. Besides the challenging natural conditions, people also face unemployment issues. Among indigenous populations, the unemployment rate reaches 20%, compared to the normal 5%. Moreover, residents often struggle to get timely medical assistance as it sometimes takes a long flight for a medical plane to reach a patient. This is why life expectancy in Alaska is 4.5 years shorter than the national average. To cope with the harsh realities, Alaskans, especially native tribes, often turn to alcohol abuse. Alcohol is responsible for most accidents, fights, violent crimes, robberies, and murders. Alcohol is also a leading cause in suicide among Alaskan tribes. The suicide rate among Native men in Alaska is 14 times higher than the U.S. average. To combat alcohol addiction, some communities have imposed strict alcohol bans. In 17 villages, it's illegal to even have alcohol in your home. Another issue Alaska faces is drug addiction, affecting around 1% of the native population. Experts believe that solving the alcohol and drug problem in Alaska will be challenging and requires extensive social work. So what's happening now? If you walk down the street, you'll see people intoxicated, both during the day and at night. Even though alcohol isn't sold openly, you can't just walk into a store and buy it. Only those with special licenses sell it. However, alcohol is still smuggled in, and naturally, there's a black market. To give you an idea, a bag of wine that costs just a few dollars in the mainland is $100 here. Despite the high prices, people still buy and sell it. Unfortunately, alcohol consumption continues, and honestly, I'm not sure how to solve this problem. If you've heard of any successful cases, let me know in the comments.
The community decided to limit the consumption of it in terms of accessibility. So they voted on initiative to, at one point, go dry, completely dry, no alcohol whatsoever.
Sorry, it was a community decision or?
Yeah, it was a community decision. It wasn't the government. It was an initiative that was pushed by the people. So they decided, the voters decided to go dry, and then there was another side of the community that wanted at least a little bit of alcohol, and they pushed for another initiative to go down, meaning there had to have been a consensus between everybody that you can order up a certain amount of alcohol based on previous criminal background history. If you were involved in any kind of alcohol-related domestic violence, you weren't allowed to order alcohol. And that was an initiative that was pushed by the people here in Barrow. And
what's the limit per person?
So it's, I believe it's, I'm not exactly sure. Last I remember it was 6 bottles of distilled spirits, 2 boxes of wine, and 5 cases of beer.
Per year?
Per month, per person.
Can we find here some wine or beer or?
No.
To buy.
To buy, no. Why not? No liquor stores?
Well, it's complicated because we like to drink. When I was pregnant, when the Westerners came with booze, in our diet, we've never had alcohol. A native person never had alcohol. So for some people, it affects your body so negatively that you can't control yourself. It causes what is that called? Alcohol poisoning very, very fast. So when they brought it over, a lot of native people died because it's a new thing that came to our place. They overindulged. So the local government made a decision to ban alcohol.
So it's like a totally ban.
Is there any black market here?
There's a big black market here.
So we can find alcohol?
You can find for $100 for a little bottle.
That's okay. Can you show us? Can you show the place where you get wine?
No, that is so bad.
No,
You can get a permit. I don't
it's
like-
for ourselves.
Oh, I'm not sure where to get it. Because he has a permit. So
Permit to buy alcohol?
yeah, you have to apply for a permit. You have to pay the city. And also, I don't know if there's a background check, but he's not a criminal, so he got approved, but I don't know. Then you buy from the city. So that's how we get our alcohol. He might be lying. He probably knows where to get alcohol. You don't want to say it on camera.
Okay, so black market. Challenge accepted.
So the locals have a license that allows them to buy a certain amount of alcohol each month. But where there are bans and restrictions, a black market emerges. On the black market, alcohol is sold at triple the price. And what about grocery prices? In the stores, they're extremely high. This is because fruits and vegetables are hard to transport here. I decided to take a walk with my family to Kawahina Danar, the store they shop at most often, to check out the prices. They turned out to be pretty steep. A carton of 18 eggs costs $7.99, and that's on sale. A gallon of milk is $12.99, marked down, because it's close to expiring. A loaf of bread is $10.39, just for one loaf. Here, half a pound of apples costs $2.50 per apple. $20 for a pre-cut fruit pack of questionable freshness. Butter, $12. You wanted yogurt? Let's check it out. A large one is $11. A small one is $3.99. These are on sale for $1.79. A pack of sausages, no idea what kind, with 8 sausages. $9 for 8 sausages. $50 for 2 steaks like this. Raspberries? Not much. 170 grams for $21.55. I'm scared I might drop it and not be able to pay for it. Strawberries are $17.70 for a small pack. And they're half rotten. $41 for a watermelon. $43 for a bouquet of flowers. In general, going on a date here is very expensive. Did you see the grocery prices? Let's check out everything else. Paper towels. 2 rolls. You won't believe this. $14. I don't get it. An LG washing machine? $1,500. Everything here costs 5 times more than in a typical American city. Want to buy a chair for your house? Sure, it's yours for $900. A table that's 5 times cheaper at IKEA? $500 here. They don't even display the prices on some items, probably because the TVs are so expensive it's better to not show the price. And these are the prices they charge, yet they can't even have a nice area in front of the supermarket. A $50 watermelon. And they can't put some decent tiles here? You just push your cart out and then trudge through the puddles to your car. Restaurant prices are also pretty steep. In places like this, it's always fascinating to hear the stories of the people who ended up here. Because, well, you don't just end up here by accident. Something significant must have happened to bring someone here. There's a restaurant here called Sam and Lee's that a lot of people recommended to me, saying that it has the best kimchi. That's Korean cabbage. And it's the best not just in Alaska, but the entire United States. As you might guess from the kimchi, the restaurant is run by a Korean family. Let's take a look at the prices at this Korean restaurant. Beef dishes range from $24 to $30. Soups are priced somewhere in the $25 to $30 range. I get the feeling that the prices are just randomly constructed from the numbers 2 and 3, and they just add a 4 sometimes. So $24, $24. The prices are comparable to those in a very expensive New York restaurant. It's a charming little place. Utqiagvik is considered the northernmost city in the United States, but just 25 minutes away, There's a spot known as the northern edge of the States. That's the Beaufort Sea. You can tell where it ends by the color of the water. There it is, Cape Barrow. Welcome. Cape Barrow is the northernmost point of the United States and Alaska. The Cape is a small split that extends northeastward into two seas simultaneously, the Chukchi Sea and the Beaufort Sea. The Cape was named after John Barrow, a British Arctic explorer. It was once an important site for Arctic aviation and served as the starting point for George Hubert Wilkins' flight over the North Pole. What's even more fascinating is that this entire black shoreline is dotted with the bones of whales and other marine animals. Whales are thrown into the sea here, and hunting them is common. But taking anything from here is strictly off limits, because if someone tries to take a souvenir, the local natives might rough you up. All the land here is private. This is a whale skeleton. You could assemble it like a piece of IKEA furniture. Buy yourself a stool or a chair, and here you can put it together, a whale skeleton from parts. Not far from the Cape, the locals have built what looks like a small cottage community. They come here for vacations. How about this kind of a getaway in a remote, desolate spot? This whole area, including the communities and lands, belongs to the Village Corporation. They own everything here. The corporation manages 223,000 acres of land. They own all this land, which is considered community land, and they manage it on behalf of the shareholders and their descendants. Any shareholder or descendant of a shareholder can come here and build a small house. All that is required is a permit from the corporation. See those mounds behind the houses? Those are the remains of our ancient sun houses. They were dug out here. They were built from soil, driftwood, and whale bones. It's a historic site. This is the Birnirk Archaeological Site. You can probably read that at the Heritage Center. It's about 2,000 years old. Our people have been here for a very long time. By the way, the architecture here isn't particularly unique, not just in Utqiagvik, but across Alaska. Maybe we should say a few words about the architecture of towns in Alaska. When I talk about Russia, I always express frustration, saying, look at this beautiful region. For instance, when I talk about Kamchatka, I point out that from Kamchatka to Kaliningrad, we have the same monotonous, gloomy, gray 5-story buildings everywhere. Why do we have such a large, beautiful country with such a diverse climate and nature, yet we build the same everywhere? Where's the originality? This always made me sad. Well, in America, it's exactly the same. Everywhere we go, we see the typical American countryside. Endless stretches of asphalt, sprawling parking lots and shopping malls. Take a look. I'm standing in Anchorage right now. What do we see here? A few glassy, utterly dull skyscrapers, wide streets, asphalt everywhere, parking lots upon parking lots, shopping centers. Everything looks the same as anywhere else. When you arrive in Anchorage, you don't get the impression that you've flown into the largest city in Alaska, or that there's anything unique about it. Sure, some cities have mountains in the background, maybe some snowy peaks, which adds a bit of interest. But in terms of architecture, unfortunately, everything is very boring and dull. So if you're interested in urban planning, cities, architecture, or public transportation, you're unlikely to find anything exciting in Alaska. Everything is uniform. Everything is standard. Standard boxes, standard concrete sidewalks, street lights, traffic lights, and this side of things is just as dull. There's no diversity. From the looks of it, you wouldn't guess that this city has nearly 400,000 residents because there are so few people around. The streets are empty, and the city feels generally boring. While the cab driver was taking me to the hotel, I even started feeling a bit down. It reminds me of typical American rural areas. A few relatively tall buildings, asphalt everywhere, vacant lots, basically just the way the Americans like it. By the way, take note, paid parking. How much is it? It's $1.75 per hour. And parking is paid from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Anchorage is often called Tent City. This name dates back to 1915 when Anchorage was founded as a temporary home for over 2,000 Alaska Railroad workers. People lived in tents and temporary wooden cabins. The living conditions, which today would be seen as extremely unsanitary, grew more crowded as more people arrived, and business unrelated to the railroad started popping up. That's how grocery stores and a newspaper produced right in a tent came into being. Anchorage officially became a city only in 1920. There's something interesting here, the Cook Monument. It's dedicated to Captain James Cook, and beneath the monument, there's a young man who's had too much to drink. Yeah, and now, more than 100 years after Anchorage became a city, tents are still set up at the train station where the Alaska Railroad began. But now, it's homeless people who live in these tents. Yes, there's an entire little town like this.
And you live here all year, also in winter. But in winter it should be really cold here.
Cold, but yeah.
And you live in these tents.
Tents are warm inside.
Oh. Does anybody help you? I don't know, government, somebody.
Government? Don't get her started, please.
No government. No nigger staff.
Stop. There's a two stop. Don't use that word.
I said at the left of God, I don't have to stop.
Don't use that word, please.
Okay. And why you homeless? What do you do for living before?
I am a therapist, but I'm going through. My husband was abusive, and took everything, and I'm trying to redo.
There are people in California who choose to live on the street, and they have tents where they maintain some order. Often they are young people, and they might even have a job. But here it's like a real homeless encampment. It's rags, dirt, and stench. They're sitting in those tents over there. I can't imagine how they survive the winter here. They say they can live there year-round, but I can understand the homeless in California. The climate there is more forgiving. Or in New York, for example. What's important for the homeless? To be able to live relatively peacefully and safely on the streets, and to have some social assistance programs to help them. The problem in Alaska is that it's cold. It's a completely unsuitable climate for living outside. Plus, there aren't many people here. I don't think there's much help or assistance available, and it's unclear what social programs exist here for those who find themselves on the streets. After walking around Anchorage, let's stop in the small port town of Homer. Here's what a tourist port looks like in a small town in Alaska. Since people mostly arrive by car, no one worries about pedestrian infrastructure. There are parking lots everywhere. These parking lots could, in theory, be paved. There are lots of small houses here where you can get food, coffee, and souvenirs. Little houses, like this. I'm not sure if there are strict rules about advertising here or not. But if you look at the signs, they all have a kind of retro vibe. Well, maybe not exactly retro, but they're simple and handmade. There are no bright light boxes or flashy ads. Even these small boards that are set up around here blend relatively well into the surrounding landscape. And all these little souvenir houses they've built here, they actually don't look too bad. Except for the general despair. They really need to fix up some proper paths because by the time you reach one of these homes, you're all muddy. But overall, you can see some old elements from the port, like buoys and floats. From an aesthetic perspective, these roadside stalls aren't badly done. But why are there potholes and puddles? Why isn't there a decent path? I mean, They didn't even set up a way to park your car without getting your feet wet. It's puzzling. The roads in Alaska are pretty much the same everywhere, just like in Homer. That's why you can't just drive to many places. Plus, Alaska is really big. Sometimes to get from one city to another, you might have to spend up to 12 hours on a train. But by plane, it only takes an hour. Still, the travel routes here are quite limited. For example, there's only one road from Anchorage to Denali. In the past, you could travel across the state by train. Anchorage is where Alaska's first railroad was built. It connected vast parts of the state. But now the railroad in Alaska is practically dead. It's mostly popular with tourists. There was a Soviet journalist who visited in the 80s. He wrote that he was amazed by the American trains in Alaska, how people would drive their cars onto the train, board it themselves, and ride to another town. Okay, that was the 80s. Now we have one tourist train and one freight train. So the railroad is pretty much dead. Well, it still exists. For example, you could go from Seward to Fairbanks, from Port to Gold. But there's no regular train service anymore. It's much cheaper to fly. But there are still these scenic trains with guides who tell stories. Cruise tourists take these trains to Denali, to Fairbanks. But it takes longer than driving. It takes longer and costs more than flying. This is how locals used to travel by train, but now they fly their small planes. These planes can get you to relatives quickly, or bring supplies to small villages. Rescue workers and medics also use these planes in towns without hospitals. Tell us about these little planes, buzzing around like dragonflies, making it hard to record. We were at Anchorage Airport today, and we flew out on one of these little planes. There's an incredible number of them. I don't think I've ever seen so many of these small planes in any other country. They take off every minute. It's really something amazing. The story really begins in the 70s when they decided to settle Alaska. So they told a lot of people, okay, you want to live somewhere? Take this land. Some get bigger plots, some smaller. And as often as it happens in Alaska, the first person there claimed the land. So people rushed there on dogs, on foot, by helicopter, and ended up with a lot of land in the middle of nowhere. Now, to reach this land, you either have to travel for a long, long time, or go in winter by snowmobile, or again by dog sled, or you just decide you need a plane. Buy one clear runway and land there. In the 70s, the airplane fleet here gradually expanded. Today, even just behind that mountain and river, there are a bunch of small airplanes parked near houses, right out on the street. The farther you go from the center, the more airplanes you'll see, because there are no roads. Everyone goes fishing, everyone goes hunting, and they want to go as far as possible, so it's easier to use an airplane. If I remember correctly, we have about 2% of all the aviation in America concentrated here, and I think around 5% of the population has a pilot's license. Airplanes here aren't a luxury, they're a necessity, so there are a lot of them. Those unfortunate residents of Anchorage who can't keep their airplane at home have to store it at the airport, the very one you saw. So, these are the unfortunate residents? Well, of course, they have to walk out of their house, get into their airplane and fly. When we need to go somewhere, like for an expedition up a mountain, there's always a company that can drop you off, pick you up, and take you wherever you need to go. Yeah, whether by airplane or helicopter, depending on the situation. So, you can get anywhere in Alaska? Yes. Yeah. Do you know how much an airplane costs? Well, it ranges from $30,000 and up. So you can get one for the price of a car? Yes, exactly. As you can see, aviation in Alaska is a big deal because most of the state, I almost said country, but that's fitting, since Alaska does feel like its own country, is inaccessible by rail or road. So small aviation is incredibly developed here. There are 10,000 pilots for Alaska's population of 700,000. Of course, besides airplanes, there are helicopters too. But they're not as common. Helicopters are mostly used for tourists. But these small planes are the real workhorses here. As I mentioned, they're often the only way to get somewhere. Anchorage is fascinating. If you look at a map, you'll see a huge international airport where cargo is delivered, and large planes arrive from different countries, mostly from America, but also from other countries. It's a full-scale international airport, and right next to it is a water airport. That's where I'm standing right now. The water airport has countless small docks where tiny planes are parked like boats. Nearby, there are parking lots filled with small airplanes. There are just dozens of these small planes. They take off and land non-stop behind me like dragonflies. It's really crazy traffic, and many of these airplanes belong to ordinary people. So you see, a guy drove up in his pickup truck, took his little airplane and flew off maybe to go hunting or to visit his friends in some remote village. And all of this happens right at the international airport in Anchorage. Now let's take a look at what the airplane parking lot near the airport looks like. It's an open area, just a regular parking lot really. Anyone can drive in here. So behind me is the international airport, and here are the parking lots. And on one of them there are airplanes. There are lots of airplanes, lots of cars, and you can just drive up, park your car, and then take your airplane and fly somewhere. What's interesting is that the airplane exits this parking lot on a regular road, the same road that cars use, and there's a variety of planes here. Most of them are older models, really basic airplanes. Many were built in the mid-20th century, but they still fly just fine. Airplanes in general are a relatively reliable piece of machinery. In Alaska, as in some other countries, there's a term called bush aviation. What is bush aviation? It's aviation where pilots fly in hard-to-reach places without prepared runways. So landings happen on water, dirt roads, open fields, shorelines, snow, and so on. That's why airplanes here are often equipped with extras, like these floats. The airplane on floats is probably the most common option, especially in summer, when you can just land on any lake and so on. Then there are bush wheels, see? Special tires, huge, soft wheels that allow the plane to land on an unprepared runway, like an open field, on a dirt road, or on the shore of a lake, as long as it's somewhat flat. And the airplane itself, you see, it's definitely not new. The plane is clearly old. What else do these types of airplanes have? Usually, they have high wings, so that when you land, the wings don't hit any vegetation or other obstacles. And you can see the variety here. This one looks like some kind of hydroplane. I might be mixing up the terms, so bear with me. But look at this marvel right here, and this is what a typical Alaskan place of strength looks like. A small garage on the shore of a lake, and an airplane. Here's the airplane, but the owner is likely off flying another one. And here's another quirky local thing. A converted car. You see, they've cut off the front end, and I'm guessing they did it themselves. Yeah, everything's been shortened and modified. The exhaust pipes are right here. So the frame is trimmed down, and they create a new frame at the front where the airplane is loaded, turning it into a sort of a tractor for the airplane. The gas tank is placed here as part of a small reconfiguration, and you end up with this odd-looking machine for towing airplanes. There are quite a few of these around in Alaska. There's a magical story tied to Alaska. The Magic Bus is a decommissioned bus left on an abandoned trail deep in the woods. It was left there in 1961 by a local construction company. The company was building an access road through the forest. The bus gained fame in 1992 when a traveler, Christopher McCandless, lived in it for 114 days before dying from eating poisonous berries. However, some say that he simply couldn't find a way out, lost his strength, couldn't make it back, and ended up committing suicide by consuming the berries. The bus became well known thanks to the book Into the Wild by Jon Krakauer, which is based on true events. In 2007, the story was adapted into a film. Since then, hundreds of travelers have started trekking through the Alaskan forests each year to reach the magic bus. It has become a destination for many. To put it in perspective, the bus is about 50 kilometers from the nearest settlement, and those 50 kilometers must be traveled through the dense taiga, with several river crossings, making the journey very dangerous. Tragically, people have died on their way to this bus. In 2019, one such journey ended in disaster for a newlywed couple from Belarus. The young couple had just married and decided to take a trip to Alaska. They made the decision to visit the bus, reached it safely, spent 2 days there, and then headed back. On the return journey, they had to cross a river. The river, especially in summer, is treacherous with high water levels, making it difficult to cross. They tied a rope around each other and attempted the crossing. But the woman slipped, fell into the water, and due to her backpack and the strong current, she was pinned to the riverbed and drowned. Her husband, still tied to her by the rope, pulled her lifeless body to shore and then called the police. By the time he retrieved her, she had already drowned. He laid her down, covered her with something like a tarpaulin or a tent, and placed rocks over her. Those rocks, exactly as he placed them, remain on the shore to this day. This tragic incident shocked the local community so much that they decided enough was enough. No more deaths, no more endless travelers making pilgrimages to the bus. They decided to move the bus out of the forest and into the city. It was transported by helicopter so that people would no longer attempt the dangerous journey to it. The bus now stands at Fairbanks University, where it is being restored, apparently to serve as some kind of monument. Well, now it's time to admire the beauty of Alaska. This might not be the most extreme trip, but it's still interesting. I flew to a park where you can watch bears. There's salmon here, and the bears feast on it, while people watch them. In general, the tourist infrastructure in Alaska is very well developed. If you were to compare it to a region in Russia, maybe Kamchatka comes to mind. But the tourist flow in Kamchatka is much smaller than in Alaska. The number of tourists here is simply incredible. No matter where you go, there are souvenir shops, tours, boat rides, and even plane rides. Basically, any service you can imagine is available for a price, and the prices are quite high. That's something we should probably talk about, because everything here is very, very expensive. For example, to see the bears, it costs around $1,000 per person. Do you have animals around here? Yes, we have animals around here. We have a bear that lives around here. We call him Doobie, a small black bear. He lives somewhere up in the mountains. Sometimes he wanders through the forest. There's a forest between us and the neighbors. He goes to the river for fish, but he doesn't come here. He's afraid of our dog. We also have a moose and her calf. Her name is Deborah. She's around often. She's our gardener. She keeps the alder trees in check, so she actually works for us. And it's surprising that she's not afraid. She doesn't really pay attention to people at all. Sometimes, in May, while working, when tents are being set up and saws are going, she'll be there just standing and eating the bushes. You probably wouldn't even notice her. I'm working on something further down, and she's in the bushes up there. Interestingly, all the bears, moose, and other wildlife belong to the state. If an animal is killed, the carcass has to be turned over to the local authorities. Low-income families usually line up for the meat. The animal's skin can be sold at auction.
Inside the city, on the outskirts, they're mainly on the outskirts, either on the beach or on the outskirts of town. Inside, like right around here, no, it's very rare. But on the outskirts of town, it's possible. I want to say maybe once a month.
Another place where you can observe animals is Sitka. Sitka is in the heart of the Tongass Forest. About 40% of the Tongass is covered with ice, water, and rocks, but it's also home to some ancient tropical trees. These trees grow in the lowlands near the mountains. The Tongass tropical forests account for a third of the world's ancient rainforests. In town or just outside of it, you can find local wildlife, mostly deer and bears, just like everywhere else in Alaska. Now we're about to go on a boat tour. The tour goes through Sitka Sound, where you can find humpback whales, sea lions, and otters. They say you can sometimes spot orcas too. I decided to check it out. Hopefully, we'll see something big, marine, and beautiful.
I've been doing whale tours for 18 years now, and so every year I see the same whales.
Do you name them?
There's one named Domino, another named Special Ed, there's another named Hook, there's another one named Blanco, another one named Mr. Bubbles. So yeah, I've got quite a few different named whales, maybe a dozen or so different whales that I've named.
What's Alaska without dog sledding? To see the local dogs, I went to the Punch Bowl Glacier. And the only way to get there in the summer is by helicopter. In the summer, there's an Alaskan Husky camp on the glacier. So, let's head there and see some adorable dogs, and more importantly, learn about how dog sled races are held in Alaska. Because it's an important part of the local culture. Look at these puppies. How wonderful. How cute they are. Such adorable little ones. These amazing Alaskan Huskies are just irresistible. So cute. Go on. What a pretty little thing. Such expressive eyes. Yes, my dear, you're simply wonderful. Now, let's finally take a ride on one of these dog sleds. It's not a full 19-kilometer race, but it's still a lot of fun. Although, the dogs seem a bit reluctant, not quite going where they're supposed to, it's hard to imagine how they manage to cover hundreds of kilometers in competitions.
All of these dogs up here are Iditarod racing dogs. So this is Mitch Seavey. He owns all the sled dogs up here, and that's his favorite dog, Pilot. All of his dogs are Iditarod racing dogs, and this is the race that they are raised to complete. It's 1,049 miles is what they like to say, because we're the 49th state. It is over 1,000 miles. They switch routes from the northern to the southern each year. And all of these black dots are checkpoints that you can stop and send all of your food ahead. So this is what a checkpoint looks like if you were to stop and rest your dogs. The race is completely unassisted, so just one musher and his team. You start with a maximum of 14 dogs, and if a dog gets hurt or sick, then you can drop them off at one of these checkpoints, and they have volunteer vets to take care of them for the rest of the race. But you can't replace that dog, so you have to run with one less. Nobody can help you if you can't ask for help or accept help. You have to do it all by yourself. The way that they usually run their dogs, let's say you're comfortable with running your dogs for 5 hours at a time, then you'll rest them for that same amount of time. So 5 hours on, then 5 hours off. And of the 5 hours of rest for the dogs, you're working with them at least 3 of those hours. So the musher himself barely ever gets any sleep. He maybe gets an hour or 2 of a nap, and then he has to get up and keep racing. And they do that, on average, it takes about 10 to 12 days to complete the race. The race is always the first week of March, which is the worst weather of the year. And that's what they want. They want it to be a really hard race. All the dogs wear these booties, but these booties only last about 50 miles. So with a team of 14 dogs and a race of 1,000 miles, you're going through thousands of booties as well. So every time you stop, you're checking every single paw, you're checking their muscles. You put ointment on if their paws have any splits or cuts. And then you have to put fresh new booties on before you leave and keep running. And when they're stopped and sleeping, the dogs are not cold, but we do put hay down underneath them and jackets on them because we want to conserve as much energy as we can. So them keeping themselves warm is burning calories that we're feeding them, and we want them to keep all of that energy. They're eating 15,000 calories a day when they're doing this race. So it's a lot of food.
What's the price for this?
The prize is usually $50,000, and
it doesn't cover anything.
Yeah, it doesn't cover anything. You're barely breaking even.
It's just a hobby, right?
Yeah. The race, just to do the race, is usually $20,000 to $25,000.
Yeah.
And that's excluding feeding and training your dogs for however many years
and
before.
maintaining them for the whole year.
Yeah, exactly.
Sunscreen and stuff.
Yeah, so it's like the least rewarding sport, but it's the most passionate one.
Yeah, but he has sponsors, I think.
Yes, yeah, he does now, absolutely. And then his son actually has won the race 5 times and broke his record in between the 2 times he broke it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So they race together?
No,
I mean
they
at the same
compete.
time?
Yeah.
2 teams? Like.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they compete against each other.
Huh.
Yeah, it's crazy.
What about you? Have you always lived in Alaska, or
No.
you moved here?
I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia.
Ah.
Yeah, so very hot, very in the south.
Okay, how do you like Alaska?
I love it. It's like another planet.
What's the main difference between Alaska and other states?
It's very extreme here. There's not any like gray areas. Like you have Anchorage, which is a big city, so that's on the extreme side, and then everywhere else is just woods and mountains. And then the summer is 24-hour daylight, and the winter is 20 hours of darkness. So it's very different that way. It's not the same. I would say mainly just like it takes a lot more to live here, a lot more attitude. So this is our kitchen structure.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, not too bad, huh?
So a coffee machine is the most important thing.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Beds, a space heater, and boot dryers. That's about all we need.
Do you stay here overnight?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a typical shift is 5 or 6 days up here, and then we get 1 or 2 days off.
If you didn't get a chance to encounter any wildlife during your travels in Alaska, you can always snap a photo of their stuffed counterparts at the Anchorage airport. There's a massive moose at the exit. A stuffed one, of course. It's there to set the right mood. The moose is real, by the way, and it's a record-breaking one. According to the plaque, the hunter who shot it did so in 1973. It might not be this exact moose, but maybe it is. You can also see an eagle hunting for fish. There's a bear here too, some famous bear. And amidst the endless souvenir shops, there are even exhibits that tell the story of the first people who lived here and their customs. So while you wait for your flight, you can learn about how life used to be here. There's an interesting sign as you exit the airport. In fact, you'll find this in many airports, if not all of them, a military greeting. It's meant for those returning home. Everywhere they salute the military. There's a strong culture of honoring those who serve. As you know, the U.S. military is a volunteer force, and the recognition of veterans and the military is deeply ingrained. You'll see a lot of aviation displays and military-themed propaganda everywhere. Whenever you land in a country or city, you'll be greeted with messages like, "Welcome home, veterans," or "We're proud of you." In this regard, Americans are very committed. There's also a small aviation museum at Sitki Airport. You can see how service used to be in the past. For example, in economy class, they used to serve juices in elegant glasses, and they even offered some interesting meals. Deodorant, shaving kits. These were all part of the travel kits given to business class passengers. If you're traveling to the state with your pet, you'll find that they're well taken care of here. If you're traveling with a dog, for example, Anchorage Airport has a special area just for your dog. Your dog can take a walk in there. You can clean up after them too. There's a bag and everything you need. You can even wash your dog. It's a great little enclosure. And just for fun, if you happen to identify as a dog, you could technically use this semi-open pet restroom too. No need to stand in line like other people do for the regular restroom. In Alaska, animals are treated with such care that special laws have been made to protect them. For example, it's illegal to wake up a sleeping bear just to take a picture. It's a sensible rule, since the bear might not react too kindly and could attack. But if you've already woken up the bear, are you really not going to take the picture? But that's not all. In Alaska, it's also illegal to throw moose out of a flying airplane. This law was introduced after an unusual game was invented in the village of Talkeetna. According to the rules, moose droppings were dropped from an airplane, and the locals had to guess where they would land. The first time they played the game, there was an actual moose on board the plane, dropping its droppings. Unfortunately, the moose fell out of the plane and crushed several residents. As a result, the law had to specify that it was the droppings, not the animal itself, that were supposed to be dropped from the plane. There's another rule concerning moose. They can't be given alcohol. This law came about after a man in Fairbanks decided to get his pet moose drunk for fun. The moose got rowdy and started causing trouble for the locals. Since then, it's been illegal to intoxicate a moose. Talkeetna, by the way, is not just known for this peculiar game. For nearly 20 years, the town's mayor was a cat named Stubbs. The mayoral position was mostly symbolic, but residents praised Stubbs as the best leader. Why not? The cat never raised taxes, interfered in business, or lied. The only demands Stubbs made were for tasty food and some attention. He loved being scratched behind the ear. Stubbs passed away in 2016 at the age of 20. Alaska is dedicated to protecting not only its fauna but also its flora. Today, the state has 8 protected natural areas, several of which are UNESCO World Heritage Sites. I was reading a book about Alaska by Vasily Peskov, a Soviet journalist from the 80s who traveled around Alaska for several months. He focused a lot on ecology. For example, he mentioned that there were many old, rusty metal barrels scattered around, which the locals referred to as the flowers of Alaska. Back in the 80s, there was significant concern among locals about oil and gas companies encroaching on protected areas, digging and extracting resources. Peskov's book reflected this growing anxiety as they prepared to fight against the destruction of Alaska's nature. Today, I understand that about a quarter of U.S. oil is produced here, with all those pipelines. On our flight to see the bears, we saw these platforms. It all looks pretty established somehow. But how does this coexist with nature conservation, ecology, reserves, national parks, and everything else? From my perspective, the company I work for, among other things, deals with the removal of waste. From oil production, old military bases, and so on. We put in enormous efforts to clean up and remove all contaminated soil from some of the most remote islands. A significant federal budget is invested in getting all this done. It's serious work, and it's being done. We know about it firsthand. In general, I think Alaska is one of those places where they take great care of the environment. But of course, this shouldn't come at the expense of the people. What can you do? It's a balancing act. Some people are now pushing for new development projects. This is an ongoing debate about whether to open up more areas for gas extraction. Are environmental activists involved in the fight? Alaska is vast and its population is sparse, so even if oil and gas operations continue, they won't overwhelm the state. But there is a pipeline and it's operational. There was an incident where a hunter shot the pipeline, causing a significant oil spill that had to be cleaned up. There are many services that monitor and patrol the pipeline. The people of Alaska are very dedicated to conserving nature. You won't see any dumps, bottles, or wrappers scattered in the forest. However, environmental problems do exist here, primarily due to oil. Wherever oil is extracted or pumped, there is always some amount of spillage, although they now try to monitor this very strictly. It's impossible to catch every fuel spill. Gasoline in Alaska is needed not just for cars, but also for heating homes. As a result, it is used quite extensively. For home heating systems, for instance, there are tanks that hold 250 to 500 gallons, and a gallon costs $4. These tanks are used to heat the generator for the house. There's also aviation fuel available at this gas station. Additionally, in the past 20 years, there have been several gas leaks in Alaska. After the Hillcore pipeline explosion, gas leaked into the atmosphere for several months. Moreover, in 2019, Alaska stopped funding the Ocean Rangers program. Because of this, there is now no one to monitor stagnant waters, emissions, and marine life. Alaska has always attracted people not just for its gold, but also for its oil reserves. The first oil well was built on the southern coast back in 1902. That's also when a refinery was established here. The largest oil field in North America, Prudhoe Bay, was discovered in 1968. After that, the construction of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline began. It's still considered a marvel of engineering. The challenge was figuring out how to lay the pipes in permafrost conditions. This required the development of new technologies. The pipeline ended up being laid above ground, on special supports with compensators. Additionally, the pipeline route zigzags. This design allows the structure to withstand earthquakes, with a magnitude of up to 8.5. By 2010, the pipeline had transported about 16 billion barrels of oil. Alaska's total oil production in 2013 was nearly 188 million barrels. This accounted for about 7% of total U.S. production. The pipeline wasn't damaged by the earthquake, nor were the two buildings in Whittier, a small coastal town in southern Alaska. That's where I decided to go. But to get to the town, I had to go through Alaska's most unusual tunnel. It's the only road that connects Whittier to the rest of the world. Another local attraction is the Anton Anderson Memorial Tunnel. Anton Anderson was involved in building railroads in Alaska, and he had a hand in this engineering marvel. It's a reversible tunnel used by both trains and cars. There's only one lane, and everyone shares it. Once an hour, traffic opens up. So if you miss it, you'll have to wait another hour. Interestingly, the tunnel closes at night, and they say that Whittier residents who didn't make it back in time, like if they were in Anchorage hanging out and didn't make it before the tunnel closed, sleep in their cars. There's no other way to get into town. It's the only road into this quaint town. The tunnel has been in operation since it was built in 1943, and it's now a landmark. People come specifically to see this tunnel, which is 2.5 miles long. Some sources say it's the longest in North America, while others say it's the second longest. But it all looks amazing, because now they've got all these clever tunneling boards, but they used to do it all by hand. Let's go and take a look. Pay attention to the entrance to the tunnel. It's special avalanche protection. If an avalanche comes down in winter, it won't block the entrance to the tunnel. After an earthquake struck Alaska, almost all the residents left Whittier. Many buildings were destroyed, and the construction of new houses in the town completely stopped. Thus, there were only 2 houses left in the small town. However, one of them soon became empty when the military left Whittier. They were originally supposed to be the ones who would live in this high-rise. The building housed a movie theater, a bowling alley, and even a small prison. In the middle of the last century, it was the largest building in Alaska. Now, the Buckner building looks pretty creepy. Empty hallways, dilapidated walls, but I couldn't just pass them by. It brings back childhood memories as I try to climb into the abandoned building. Anyway, there used to be 2 buildings where people lived, but one of them was abandoned, leaving just one. And now, the abandoned building is a local landmark. I think I found a way in. You can crawl through here. Oh man, I think I'm stuck. No.
What?
I've done it. Well, folks, this is a local landmark in this town. The building was built in 1953. It was called Home Under One Roof. Really, a pretty big building for Alaskan standards. It directly reminds me of my childhood, when I used to explore all these abandoned buildings. In March of 1964, there was a great earthquake in Alaska, the strongest earthquake in U.S. history, and the second most powerful in the world. The earthquake had a magnitude of 9.2 on the Richter scale. To put the magnitude into perspective, last year's February earthquake in Turkey had a magnitude of less than 8. As often is the case, the earthquake led to a tsunami that destroyed many homes and killed over 100 people. That, by the way, is 7% of all deaths in Alaska that year. Translated into today's money, the damage amounted to about $2 billion. Whittier's second building is the Hodge Building, the only apartment complex in the city. There are 196 apartments on 14 floors. About 300 people live in them. In addition to the apartments, the building has a store, a post office, a playground, and 2 churches. There is also a tunnel under the Hodge Building that connects the building to the school. Whittier residents complain that they feel like prisoners. They hardly ever leave their homes because of frequent snowstorms, and they rarely travel to neighboring Anchorage. It's quite a long journey, and the tunnel operates strictly at certain hours, so you might not be able to get home in time. When there are avalanches in the city, the tunnel is closed for several months. By the way, Whittier is the wettest place in Alaska. Yes, it gets over 5 meters of rain annually, so it's a pretty wet place. And this building became a landmark. It was built in 1957. This 14-story building was constructed in 57. They even put up a special information board indicating that it was an important building, a landmark. It has become so popular that even cruise ships have started stopping in this town. And tourists come here specifically to see this building. I don't know how happy the locals are about tourists visiting them, but still. So originally, you see, this was all built for the army. In fact, during the Cold War in the 1950s, the local authorities had plans to build about 8 of these buildings. So there was supposed to be a significant population here. By the way, in the 1960s, 800 people lived here. Now there are only 200 left. It was planned that there would be many high-rise buildings here, creating a large complex. But in the 70s, the military left. And the place has been slowly dying, if I may say so. Now, there is only one residential building left. Inside the building, there's a post office, and there's a store that sells all the essentials. There's ice cream, an endless variety of canned goods, ties to suit all tastes. Not a bad selection for an American store, considering it's a small one. There's peaches, fruit, cheese, milk, and drinks, a good selection of snacks. That's how the laundry looks. You can buy some laundry detergent here. Alaska is a very diverse state. It has glaciers and forests with bears and moose. The largest animals in the world live in these waters. In Alaska, there are indigenous people with their ancient traditions and unique way of life. They extract oil and gold here and travel around the state by airplane. Alaska is more like a whole country rather than just a state. That's why it fascinates people from all over the world who want to live, work, and admire nature here. If you liked the video, then do not forget to share it on Reddit or send a link to your friends on WhatsApp.